Okay, so here's a rundown just so you guys know where we are. We're on the last one. I know it's sad. Secret number 5. This is really the crux of everything. This is bringing everything together. We've gone through how we can meet more guys, where to meet them, what do we say, and then once we've started to meet these guys and talk to them, like what are some ways that we can show that we're interested, and some ways that we can see if they're interested in us. And secret number 5, we're going to explore what keeps guys interested in some girls and why they lose interest in others. And this is really where we're going to wrap it up here. So secret number 5, here we go. So in the past, what have you seen as the top indicator of a successful relationship? And everything comes down to one word, and that's foundation. So what's the foundation of the relationship? So when I first started to figure these things out, I wanted to know like why this was the case. So if you guys think about building a structure or a building, the foundation is where all the strength comes from, and that's where the strength of the relationship comes from. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen this or heard the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but it's actually a real place, and it's known as one of the worst architectural structures of all time. Like, look at that thing. Like, compared to the other smaller building, it's like, that's horrible. And the reason why is it was, when it was constructed, the tower was built on a really, really thin foundation. It was built on really, really unstable earth, and the tower started to sink. And so the strong foundation like wasn't there at all. And so the foundation becomes the strength of the building, and it becomes the strength of the building in 3 main ways. The first is to support the building, of course. 2 is to keep the building upright and protect it from the elements, and to keep water from getting in and weakening the structure. Now, in a similar fashion, how do we use the same process to make sure that the foundation of our relationships are strong and healthy? And this is really going to tie together because guys want relationships that are strong and healthy, as you do. And so we're going to talk about why we build a strong foundation and what that's going to do for us. And so the first is you have to support the building. You have to support the relationship. And just like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, if you have a standing foundation, it's going to sink. And then second, you have to protect it from the elements. Now, what are the elements? These are usually people who are unsupportive. They don't want to see you succeed. And you're going to have those people in your life who won't support you, maybe are even jealous of you. Now, I'll never forget, I was dating a girl I'd known for a few years. We were pretty close. We were unofficially engaged. The only thing missing was a ring. And I did not have any support from my family or even my closest friends. It was really, really hard to move forward with that. Luckily, there were some other red flags that led me to break up with her. I'll share more about that another time, but the point is that it was really hard to keep moving forward without the help or support of people around me. And I was really lost, and I was really, really struggling. So if you have that strong foundation, you can protect your relationship from those things that try to break you apart. The third thing is to keep water from getting in. Basically, don't be thirsty, you guys. Water's good, but it's only in certain areas. Thirsty meaning like someone who's super eager or like trying too hard, things like that. So why you should be friends before you start dating. This is really, I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for this, that people are like, hey, you know, I want to go, like, I just want to jump ahead to where, like where we can have fun, you know, holding hands, kissing, whatever, you know, but being friends is hard. It takes time. And guys, I'm going to promise you that, like, yes, it does. Yes, it is hard. And yes, it does take time. But this is going to completely change everything that you do with dating here. So there was a guy named Jeremy Nicholson from Psychology Today, and he explains this perfectly. This balance between desire and likability. He says, and I'm going to read his quote here. It says, being easy, congenial, and friendly makes a person more likable, but not more attractive or desirable as a romantic partner. In contrast, being aloof and challenging made a person become more attractive and desirable, but did not make them likable. So someone who's more likable is someone who's really easy and someone who's friendly, more likable. But someone who's more attractive and desirable as a romantic partner, it was someone who was more aloof and challenging. Remember, nothing easy in life is worth having. Okay, so he continues. Satisfying your partner's needs or wants increases how much he or she likes you and how friendly he or she feels towards you, but it can also reduce his or her desire to chase you for more. In contrast, not satisfying a partner's needs may keep him, or we're going to say him, passionately pursuing you and trying to please you, but will eventually lead to dislike, and dissatisfaction and animosity. So there's really this delicate balance between desire and likability here. The reason why that is, his point is that it's much easier to keep the desire for likability because you already care about doing nice things for this person when you're friends before you even start dating. It's a lot more difficult when you start investing more and more when you really don't care much about this other person's needs. So before we go to Dr. John, 2012, the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that these couples who are platonic, non-sexual friends first experience more romance in their relationship, and after they became best friends first, and then they started dating, they got the added benefits of being in a physical relationship as they were best friends. And that's the best. So the other part is not getting physical too early when you aren't friends first. So this guy, Dr. John Van Epp, he taught a principle called the relationship attachment model. And some of you may have heard of this already. For those of you who haven't, you're going to be in for a treat. But when I discovered this completely changed my outlook on dating. So the relationship attachment model, very simple, yet it's really effective to be able to use. So what's cool about this is that it provides guideposts for you to know exactly where to go. It shows you the perfect timeline you need to make a relationship successful. So the stages of the RAM model outline exactly how fast to take the relationship without making things awkward between the two of you. So the idea behind this is a series of steps to ensure that you're not taking the relationship too quickly. So basically, I know some of you are kind of grumbling right now, but you're not allowed to skip steps. So you'll notice here that the steps are know, trust, rely, commit, and touch. Okay, so guys, using this RAM model, like your relationships are going to grow much deeper, and they're going to last a lot longer when you do this. And so how do you progress through the stages faster? Some of you may be wondering. Well, it takes time. You got to slow down, spend more time together. So let's start with the first one, know. So before you go anywhere, obviously you have to be able to know who this person is. And not just know about them, but really know them. Like, who are they? Like, what is their past like? What do they like to do? Why? Like, what are they afraid of? How come? What do they enjoy the most? And why is that? It's really good to know that someone's favorite thing to do is, I don't know, like playing basketball. But it's like, what do you love about basketball so much? Like, getting to the why is really going to help you to progress through these stages quicker and to be able to help you get to know them faster. And so once you begin to know someone, then you can then move on to the next step, being able to trust them. So once you've gotten to know someone, you begin to naturally trust them. Excuse me. So trust comes from this sense of confidence that you have with this other person. It's really a special bond, if you will, that you begin to share as you trust the other person. You begin to really feel a connection once this trust bridge starts to form. And then you move on to the second one. And a lot of people make this mistake that being able to rely on someone and trust them is really the same thing, and it's really not. There's a critical difference between these two. Reliance is the more powerful counterpart of actually following through. You can say that you trust somebody, but reliance is more about following through with that. It's the physical act of doing what you say you will actually do. And so reliance is that crucial part of any relationship, because it's when you really start to build this tie of closeness, and it does amazing things for people. So commit is the fourth one. This is hands down the most important stage. The commitment stage is when everything changes. It's the point when you both realize that you can give everything to each other and not hold anything back. And so commitment could, you can use this in a bunch of different scenarios. So commitment for you could be exclusivity, that you're only exclusive, you're only going to date that person. That could be commitment. Commitment could be an engagement, it could be marriage. There's a lot of different elements of commitment, and the RAM model applies in all aspects of the relationship, from first getting to know somebody all the way to when you get married. And so once you have those steps, then you go to touch. And this is like the physical. Obviously, this is the part like we've all been waiting for. You can't jump the gun on this. You can't begin to trust someone, like you can't commit to someone before you trust them. And you can't rely on someone before you get to know them. And you shouldn't, have that touch stage, which whatever that means for you, like it could be kissing or holding hands or something more, or being more serious. But there isn't that element of skipping steps here. So don't jump the gun on this. The physical means you're building another element of closeness in there. So once you go through these steps, you've earned that. So just so you guys know, this really wasn't just me. So I want to show you what this did for a girl named Emily that I knew. Emily's a really nice girl, and she was really, really good at meeting new people. She was charming, she was cute, she was outgoing, and she was doing like all the right things. But when she would meet someone new, within the first week, they would always ghost her. And she's like, what the heck? Like, this is so weird. I don't know why this is happening. And for those of you who don't know, ghosting basically means that things are going awesome, and then all of a sudden, without any notice, you never hear from them again. Maybe this has happened to you, or maybe to someone that you know. So she's like wondering, she's like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? So every week she would meet a new guy. He was handsome, he was nice, he was charismatic, and she was interested in dating him. But at the end of the week, she would never hear from him again. And some of you may be like, okay, it's just a fluke, like it may have only happened a few times. Like, no, this happened like 4 weeks in a row. And like she would meet a new guy, and then within a week they would all ghost her, every single one of them. And the reason why I know this is, if I'm telling the truth, it's because I was actually guy number 4. And so I met her on week number 4. So within a week she asked me if I wanted to come over. And so I agreed, and I didn't know any of this at this time, anything about her past. And so I agreed and went over, and we were chatting for a bit, and she's like, hey, do you want to watch a movie? And we had been out once before, and so the cardinal rule is no movies on the first date. Please, don't ever do that. It's weird. You don't even know them. You shouldn't even be cuddling anyway on the first date. Get to know them first. This is all part of the RAM model as well. So I agreed it would be really fun to go and watch a movie. So we went to a downstairs lounge and turned on some chick flick. I think it was like Legally Blonde, if I remember right. And she started to lean into my shoulder, and I started to kind of pull away, like ever so slightly. Like it wasn't a lot. It was just a little bit. And to kind of show her, like, hey, I'm not really interested in cuddling. I don't even hardly know you. Like, we're not even at this reliance stage yet. And so she just kept like missing the signals. Like she just kept like pushing to hold my hand, and I'd put my hand in my lap, like obviously showing I wasn't feeling it. And she started to say things like, Adam, come on, like what are you doing? And she was kind of a forward girl, and it kind of got to the point where we had to talk about it. She's like, Adam, what's going on? And And I told her, like, hey, it was really important that I build a relationship before I act like I'm in one. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, I want to get to know you before we start kissing and holding hands and acting like a couple. And that didn't make like any sense to her at all. And she like couldn't understand like why that was the case. And that's when I knew why she was losing so many guys. She's like, I just don't get it. Every week I meet this great new guy, and it seems like by the end of the week they're gone. And she's like, I like to get physical, and I try to kiss them before the end of the first week. I'm like, well, duh. Like that would be that would be why. She was like scaring off these guys. And so what I did is I taught her a really, really important lesson about the RAM model. She didn't like it at first. So she actually would mock me and say things like, okay, what step are we on? Can we just have a cheat night? Like, I'm totally serious. She actually said that. Like, can we just have a cheat night? And so later I showed her, though, that the best relationships are built on trust and mutual respect for each other. And she started slowing her relationships down, was in more control. And as of last year, she actually got married to the man of her dreams. And no, it wasn't me. But it was because I'm convinced that she started to slow her relationships down and apply the RAM model. And it's seriously one of the most amazing tools that we can use to pace our relationships. And many people don't follow it just because they think it's really silly. And they lose precious time, they lose relationships because they just don't take this into account. So take the higher road, put in the time and the effort and that it takes to build an amazing relationship. One time I went a little overboard when I was dating one girl. We got really close, but we didn't kiss for about 3 months into our relationship. I don't recommend that actually for anybody. So like you should be able to get through those stages, even if it takes 3 months before you kiss them. If it's taking you that long to get to rely and commit, hey, that's totally okay. So, as cool as that is, my goal is to be able to get you to the point where you can be in control of the relationship. And if it results in marriage, awesome. But let's learn to walk before we run. So this is just a brief outline of the RAM model so that you guys can be familiar with it. Okay. So this is our last concept. This is keeping him interested. And so I want to talk about why some concerts sell out shows and others don't. Some of you be like, what does this have to do with anything? But I'm going to show you how you can you can use these techniques and these strategies to be able to become someone who he wants to keep around. And kind of using this analogy. So I remember that I was handed an envelope a couple years ago. Didn't have a return address on it. It was actually thicker than most envelopes, and I didn't know what it was at all. But it was my birthday, and so I ripped open the envelope, tossed it to the side, and said, "Thank you for purchasing your tickets. You can find your receipt attached to the bottom." And I was like, tickets to what? And so I started scanning the paper, and for anything that could like give me an answer for this. And I looked at the very bottom about who we were going to go see, and I was like, no way. Oh my gosh. And the name listed on the body was Journey. I was like, two concert tickets to go see Journey live. I was like, anyway, for those of you who don't know, Don't Stop Believing or any of those other songs, look them up. I'm sure most of you have probably heard of them. They're very, very popular. But there wasn't anyone who wanted to go more than I did to go see Journey. They are amazing, and I was like, how did this person pull this off? And so I looked, I was like, okay, when's the concert? And it was only one night. It was not for another like 2.5 months. I was like, 2.5 months? Are you kidding me? It was the most painful 2.5 months of my life. But it was totally worth the wait. So we show up to the concert the day of and got there super early, probably an hour and a half early, and sat with just anticipation, right? It was like the best event of the year. And so the show's about to start. The lights start dimming, and I wish I had video of this. It wouldn't do it justice, but the lights start dimming and everyone gets super, super quiet. all of a sudden the intro to Separate Ways comes on. All the lights start going crazy, and the piano is just amazing. And it was enough to send a chill up your spine. Like, it was the best concert I had ever attended. And so I want you guys to think about if you've ever been to a concert and what sort of things like make that concert special. So the first part was the concert was in my hometown for one night. It wasn't going to be any other time. This was the only time to be able to go to the concert. It was this 2-hour block, and so it provided an element of scarcity. And there weren't very many tickets. There were limited tickets, and so this element of scarcity. This was the only time that I had to go, and so that's what made it really appealing and attractive, very special. The idea is that those things that we work for, and those things that are scarce are much more rewarding than those things which are just kind of easily accessible. Another example is I was at one of my buddy's house, and he asked me if I had gone to see the City Light Show yet. And I had heard about it, and he had motioned to a flyer on the table that had more information about it. And the light show was shown every 5 minutes from 6 p.m. to midnight every night for the rest of the year. I was like, haven't seen the light show yet. Like every 5 minutes from 6 to midnight every night for the rest of the year. I was like, how likely do you think I would be to go and actually make time for that light show? I was like, if I was in the area, I might stop by if I was walking, but I want to go out of my way to go and see it. And in a similar fashion, that which is scarce becomes more valuable in our eyes. And so I want to tell you about Natalia. And Natalia was a girl, and she met a really nice guy. His name was Rick, at a social party. And Natalia was really pretty, exciting, and enthusiastic about life. And every time that Rick wanted to hang out, she would be there. And she became obsessed and overly attached. She thought about him every day, and they would watch TV shows together most nights of the week. And after several amazing nights together, Natalia would beg Rick to stay, even though he would try to pull away each time. And he was always the one to end the night because she just wanted more and more. She was like, she loved this guy. She thought he was great. And what began to happen is Natalia began to unconsciously train Rick to call, and she would be available. And psychologists call this classical conditioning. And the classic example of this is the dog who hears a whistle and races over to his owner for a treat. And the same was for Natalia, is that the tighter she clung, the looser her grip became. And so whenever Rick would shoot a text asking if she wanted to hang out, he would know that she would automatically say yes, which resulted in much less investment on his part. And so Rick became bored and no longer interested, and it seemed like the one thing that Natalia was afraid of losing was his love. And so she began to, clung tighter and tighter, and the looser her grip became because of this. And so there needs to be this balance of not being available all the time, which leads back to 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's only going to make him want you more. You remember we were talking about before about this element of desire and likability, and keeping that balance is super, super important. Not being available all the time. And so the second part of this was that with the concert, is that they left the audience wanting more. So after the concert finished, I was waiting for the song Loving, Touching, Squeezing by Journey, but it never came. I was so bummed. I was like, oh man, that's one of my favorite songs, and I really, really wanted to hear that song, to hear it live. But they had to end due to time restrictions. And the audience knew that they had more songs, but they stopped playing before they had played all their songs, or all the most popular songs. It was perfect for them because we all loved Journey even more after that. And the same is true in dating. My grandmother was the master in relationship building. She had a date every night during college. And, this was a different time period back then, like in the 50s. But she was proposed to not once, not twice, but 52 times. She had so many guys chasing her. And I asked her, like, what are you doing that other girls aren't doing? And she replied with these 6 iconic words that she said, I always leave them wanting more. And so for you, like, this could be the end of a date or conversation. Even though you have another story to tell her, there's something more that you want to add to the conversation. This could also be like you not giving in to his pleas for you to stay a little bit longer. And if you do stay, whenever he asks, like, you start this process of training him that he can get whatever he wants. So the more mature thing to do is to say gently that you need to go, give him a quick kiss on the cheek, and off you go. You have to realize that you are a woman of value and a woman of true worth, and that you need to teach the men that you date that you need to be treated as such. And so act like a Journey concert. Don't be the city light show. And you can do that by becoming a woman of scarcity and always leave them wanting more. Like, guys, you have to remember that you have to create a life that's your own, that's not all about him. Like, create a life that he wants to be a part of. So, this will be one of the last things that we touch on, and we're going to leave it with this, but this is the big question that's on his mind when he's with you. It's really important that you balance this with letting him live his life and giving him space. Guys don't respect girls who are too clingy or needy. And so it's really those relationships that blossom from letting him be himself and you being yourself. And like a secret is, guys need to feel like you aren't trying to change who they are. Like, nobody can change anyone else. Like, only they can change themselves. And so there's a constant question that's happening on the back burner of his mind, of every guy's mind. And it's that, is this person emotionally draining or sustaining? Do you drain or do you sustain? If you're emotionally draining, it doesn't matter if you're Kate Upton. If you don't know who that is, she's a American model, but who's beautiful. But it doesn't matter if you're Kate Upton, because every guy has a breaking point where they just can't take it anymore. And to give you a perspective, talking to an emotionally draining person is like you forgetting that you have a homework assignment due that night that you just completely forgot about. You're like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. Or it's a work project that you completely forgot about. It's exhausting, and your man will feel worn out. So if you're not sure what side you're on, consider some of the thoughts that he may be having. Is she texting me wanting to know about everything that's happened that day? And it's okay to be like, hey, how was your day? And that's fine. But it's like, tell me about everything that happened from the moment that you woke up to like right now. Also ask yourself, who starts the conversation most of the time? If it's you starting the conversation most of the time, you might want to reassess if he's not really investing a lot back in you. The third is she fishing for compliments? Saying things like, am I not cute enough? Am I not pretty enough? Like, why can't I be like that other girl over there? Like, that tends to be really annoying. And girls that cut themselves down, they tend to have a lower self-esteem, which isn't attractive. And it becomes a real drain on the guy. So remember that sustaining is more healthy. It's uplifting, enlightening, and fun. Sustaining people have a light about them. One of my good friends, Taylor, every time we see Taylor, everyone just has a huge smile on their face, because the type of person that just loves to uplift and sustain people. And so be a Taylor. Remember the type of person that, become that type of person that you would love to be around. Help him become a better person, and he's going to want to keep you around for much longer. So our FAQs, the last one. Thanks for hanging in here, guys. What evidence do you have in your own behavior that you are sustaining instead of draining? Now, what are the two things that make a concert special and thus make you special? Number 3, briefly outline the RAM model, if you guys remember that. And 4, what was your aha moment from this section? So this is what we've talked about. We went through secret number 1, where we uncovered the core reason why women don't meet more guys, and that's fear. And we talked about being able to recognize our fears, being able to have an anchor thought, and being able to call it like it is. If you remember calling it excitement instead of fear, that's really going to help you guys a ton. In secret number 2, we talked about the best social hotspots. We talked about weak ties. We talked about the sport activities. We talked about religious and service groups. We also talked about local events and activities and clubs and different things and places that you can go and meet more guys. Secret number 3, we talked about how to start talking to guys without any fear of rejection. We talked about tying in what we learned in secret number 2 about weak ties into going and meeting people. If you need some more of those scripts, don't forget to go back into secret number 3 to go and get those. Secret number 4, we dove into those subtle hints. We talked about the flirting connection. We talked about the body language secrets and playful teasing and combining those things to become more attractive. And then in secret number 5, we talked about not being draining, and we talked about sustaining. And we discussed, especially also in to be the type of person that he needs to respect and becoming a woman of true value by creating elements of scarcity and to always leave them wanting more. I really hope this was helpful and that you got value from this. If you felt like this was useful, then please let me know. You can shoot me an email at adam.smith@mylvp.com. I'm going to close with this manifesto. This is what LVP is all about. We are a group of like-minded single adults who aren't like other millennials. We improve ourselves in 3 fundamental ways: looks, values, and personality. And LVP is more than just creating amazing relationships. It's about healthy lifestyles and continuous personal development. We don't lower our standards to get attention. We don't build on relationships, on the physical non-committal makeout sessions or NICMOs and one-night stands like the rest of the world. Instead, we take a different approach. And every day we're fighting against other promiscuous young single adults with little to no moral values. We have to find a better way to compete and end up with our happily ever after. So how do we make it happen? The majority of the world's millennials would tell you it's pretty much impossible to get the right people's attention without lowering your standards, but not anymore. We are innovative, stronger, more resilient, and looking for new ways to become more attractive to the people most important to us. And we are the LVP community, and this is our story. So thank you guys for being a part of this masterclass. I really hope this was helpful. Please shoot me an email with any questions. For any questions, you can email us at support@mylvp.com. And so if you're not yet a part of the LVP community, you can go to www.mylvp.com. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you at one of my other masterclasses.